Hello, y'all. Today we are on the Swiss Family Robinson by Joan Weiss, and we are on chapter 12, Towed by a Turtle. Next morning, while the breakfast was getting ready, I attended to the beautiful skin of the kangaroo, which I was anxious to preserve entire, and afterward, when Fritz had prepared everything in readiness for our trip to the wreck, I called Ernest and Jack in order to give them some parting injections. They, however, had disappeared directly after breakfast, and their mother could only guess that as we required potatoes, they might have gone to fetch a supply. I desired her to reprove them on their return for starting away without leave. But as it appeared they had taken Turk, I satisfied myself that no harm was likely to befall them, although it was not without reluctance that I left my dear wife alone with little Franz, cheering her with hopes of our speedy return with new treasures from the wreck. Advancing steadily in our own way, we crossed the bridge at Jackal River, and then suddenly, to our no small astonishment, Jack and Ernst burst out of a hiding place where they had lain in wait for us, and were enchanted with the startling effect of their unexpected appearance upon their unsuspecting father and brother. It was evident that they fully believed they might now go with us to the wreck. To this notion, I at once put a decided stop, although I could not find in my heart to scold them. Two merry rogues for their thoughtless frolic, more especially as I particularly wished to send back a message to my wife. I told them they must hurry home, so as not to leave their mother in suspense, although, as they were already so far, they might collect some salt, and I instructed them to explain that, as my work on board would take up a long time, she must try to bear with our absence for the night. This I had meant to say when we parted, but my courage had failed, knowing how much she would object to such a plan, and I had resolved to return in the evening. On consideration, however, of the importance of constructing a raft, which was my intent in going and finishing it without a second trip, I determined to remain on board for the night, as the boys had, unintentionally, given me the chance of sending a message to that effect. "Goodbye, boys. Take care of yourselves. We're off," shouted Fritz, as I joined him in the tub-boat, and we shoved off. The current carried us briskly out of the bay. We were very soon moored safely alongside the wreck, and scrambling up her shattered sides, stood on what remained of the deck, and began at once to lay our plans. I wanted to make a raft fit to carry on shore a great variety of articles far too large and heavy for our present boat. A number of empty water casks seemed just what was required for a foundation. We closed them tightly, pushed them overboard, and arranged them, 12 of them side by side, in rows of 3. We firmly secured them together by means of spars, and then proceeded to lay a good substantial floor of planks, which were defended by a low bulwark. In this way we soon had a first-rate raft, exactly suited for our purpose. Rejoicing that we were not expected home, we now made an excellent supper from the ship's provisions, and then rested for the night on spring mattresses, a perfect luxury for us after our hard and narrow hammocks. Next morning, we actively set about loading the raft and boat, first carrying off the entire contents of our own cabins, passing on to the captain's room. We removed the furniture, as well as the doors and window frames, with their bolts, bars, and locks. We next took the officer chests, and those belonging to the carpenter and gunsmith. The contents of these later we had to remove in portions, as their weight was far beyond our strength. One large chest was filled with an assortment of fancy goods and reminded us of a jeweler's shop. So glittering was the display of gold and silver watches, snuff boxes, buckles, studs, chains, rings, and all manner of trinkets. These, and a box of money, drew our attention for a time. But more useful to us at present was a case of common knives and forks, which I was glad to find has more suited to us than the smart silver ones we had previously taken to shore. To my delight, we found, most carefully packed, a number of young fruit trees, and we read on the tickets attached to them the names, so pleasant to European ears, of the apple, pear, chestnut, orange, almond, peach, apricot, plum, cherry, and vine. The cargo, which had been destined for the supply of a distant colony, proved, in fact, a rich and almost inexhaustible treasure to us. Ironmongery, plumber's tools, lead, paint, grindstones, cartwheels, and all that was necessary for the work of a smith's forge, spades and plowshares, sacks of maize, peas, oats, and wheat, a hand mill, and also the parts of a sawmill, so carefully numbered that we were strong enough it would be easy to put up and had been stowed away. So bewildered were we by the wealth around us that for some time we were at a loss as to what to remove to the raft. It would be impossible to take everything, yet the first storm would be complete, the destruction of the ship, and we should lose all we left behind. Selecting a number of the most useful articles, however, including, of course, the grain and the fruit trees, we gradually loaded our raft. Fishing lines, reels, cordage, and a couple of harpoons were put on board, as well as the mariner's compass. Fritz, recollecting our encounter with the shark, placed the harpoons in readiness, and amused me by seeming to picture himself a whaler, flourishing his harpoon in most approved fashion. Early in the afternoon, both our crafts were heavily laden, and we were ready to make for the shore. The voyage was begun with considerable anxiety, as, with the raft in tow, there was some danger of an accident. But the sea being calm and the wind favorable, we found we could spread the sail and our progress was very satisfactory. Presently, Fritz asked me for the telescope, as he had observed something curious floating at a distance. Then, handing it back to me, he begged me to examine the object, which I soon discovered to be a turtle asleep on the water, and of course unconscious of our approach. "Do, father, steer toward it," exclaimed he. I accordingly did so, that he might have a nearer look at the creature. Little did I expect what was to follow. The lad's back was turned to me, and the broad sail was between us, so that I could not perceive his actions. Then, all of a sudden, I experienced a shock and the thrill of the line running through the reel. Before I had time to call out, a second shock and the sensation of the boat being rapidly drawn through the water alarmed me. "Fritz, what are you about?" cried I. "You are sending us to the bottom." "I have him! Hurrah! I have him safe!" shouted he in eager excitement. To my amazement, I perceived that he really had struck the tortoise with a harpoon. The rope was attached to it, and the creature was running away with us. Lowering the sail and seizing my hatchet, I hastened forward in order to cut the line and cast adrift at once the turtle and harpoon. "Father, do wait," pleaded the boy. "There is no danger just yet. I promise to cut the line myself the instant it is necessary. Let us catch this turtle if we possibly can. My dear boy, the turtle will be a very dear bargain if he upsets all our goods into the sea. Even if he does not drown us, too. For heaven's sake, be careful. I will wait for a few minutes, but the minute there is danger, cut the line. As the turtle began to make for the open sea, I hoisted the sail again, and finding the opposition too much for it, the creature again directed its course landward, drawing us rapidly after it. The part of the shore for which the turtle was making was considerably to the left of our small, usual landing place. The beach there shelved very gradually, and at some distance from land we grounded with a sharp shock, but unfortunately without capsizing. The turtle was evidently greatly exhausted, and no wonder, since it had been acting the part of a steam tug and had been dragging at full speed a couple of heavy-laden vessels. Its intention was to escape to land, but I leaped into the water and, wading up to it, dispatched it with my axe. As we were by no means far from Falconhurst, Fritz gave notice of our approach by firing off his gun, as well as shouting in his glee. While we were yet engaged in securing our boats and getting the turtle on shore, the whole family appeared in the distance, hastening eagerly toward us. Our new prize, together with the well-laden boat and raft, excited the liveliest interest. My wife's chief pleasure, however, consisted in seeing us back, as our night's absence had disturbed her, and she was horrified by the description of our dangerous run in the wake of the fugitive turtle. Being anxious to remove some of our goods before night, the boys ran off to fetch the sledge, while I, having no anchor, contrived to moor the boats by means of some heavy blocks of iron we had brought. It required our united strength to get the turtle hoisted onto the sledge, its weight being prodigious. We found it, indeed, with the addition of the sapling fruit trees, quite a sufficient load. We then made the best of our way home, chatting merrily about our various adventures. The first thing to be done on our arriving was to obtain some of the turtle's flesh and cook it for supper. To my wife, this appeared necessary a work of time as well as of difficulty, but I turned the beast on its back and soon detached the portion of the meat from the breast with a hatchet. By breaking the lower shell and then directed that it should be cooked with a little salt, shell and all. "What a handsome shell!" cried Fritz. "It should make a water trough of that, to stand near the brook, and be kept always full of clear water. How useful it would be!" "That is a capital idea," I replied, "and we may manage it easily, if we can find clay as to make a firm foundation on which to place it." "Oh, as to clay," said Jack, "I have a grand lump of clay there under that root." "Well done, my lad. When did you find it?" "He found a bed of clay near the river this morning," said his mother, "and came home in such a mess. I had regularly to scrape his clothes and wash him thoroughly." "Well, mother, I can only tell you I should never in all my days have found the clay if I had not slipped and fallen in it." "That I can well believe," returned his mother. "Only to hear you talk this morning, one would have thought your discovery of clay the result of a very arduous search indeed." "When you have ended the question of the clay and the turtle shell," said Ernst, "I should like to show you some roots I found today. They are getting rather dry now. They look something like radishes, although the plant itself was almost a bush. But I have not ventured to taste them, although our old sow was devouring them at a great rate." "In that you did wisely, my boy, Swine may eat many things injurious to men. Let me see your roots. How did you discover them? I was rambling in the wood this morning and came upon the sow, very busy grubbing under a small bush and eating something ravenously. So I drove her away and found a number of these roots, which I brought for you to see. Indeed, Ernst, I exclaimed, after taking the roots in my hand and considering them attentively. I am inclined to believe that you have really made a brilliant discovery. If this proves to be, as I expect, a mannock root, we might lose every other eatable we possess, and yet not starve. In the West Indies, cakes called cassava bread are made from it, and already, having potatoes, we shall be very independent if we can succeed in preparing flour from these roots. Great care must be taken in the manufacture to express the juice, otherwise the flour may be injurious and even poisonous. If we can collect a sufficient quantity, we will attempt bread making. I think I know how to set about it. Finding there was still time to make another trip to the sledge, I went off with the elder boys, leaving Franz with his mother. And we all looked forward with satisfaction to the prospect of the princely supper they were to have ready for us, for our day's work had been none of the lightest. The sledge quickly received its second load from the raft, chests, 4 cartwheels, and the hand mill were placed in it, with all manner of smaller articles, and we lost no time in returning to Falconhurst. So it seems like they are slowly getting more and more items, some from the boat and some from the land around them, that is going to be able to help them survive stranded on this island for however long they may be. Anyway, let me know some of your thoughts that they may find on this island, kind of near New Zealand, Australia area. And you all have a great, blessed, and wonderful day.